There we go. All right. So here we are. We're about to enter 2022, a new year. And the calendar is already starting to fill up. In February, the Winter Olympics are going to kick off in Beijing. February 13th is the Super Bowl, for those that are interested. We'll most likely have some major shakeups because of the elections that are going to happen for the House of Representatives. Cell phone companies are getting rid of all of their 3G towers. So if you've got an old flip phone that uses 3G, it's not going to work anymore after this year. You're going to have to upgrade. Get you a smartphone instead of a dumb phone. Okay? On December 19th, just here a couple of weeks ago, the White House tweeted, "For the unvaccinated, you're looking at a winter of severe illness and death for yourselves, your families, and the hospitals you may soon overwhelm." So we have that encouraging word for the new year from the president to look forward to. Nostradamus predicted that a large asteroid would hit the Earth in 2022. Of course, he predicted that for 2021 and for 2020. Over many years, he has predicted that. There's a new movie that has just come out on Netflix called Don't Look Up. That's actually about that very subject. And the internet is all abuzz about a Yellowstone supervolcano eruption that is supposed to happen in 2022 with the potential of killing millions of people across the globe. So tonight I want us to look at Revelation chapter 21. Yeah. While we're dealing with that, let's look at Revelation. Revelation chapter 21. When I was growing up, there were a lot of books and movies about Revelation, dealing with Revelation, that came out. And quite frankly, they portrayed the book of Revelation and the end times as being kind of scary. Well, now that I'm older and I've actually studied what Revelation says, my view is, what's so scary about happy endings? You know? What's scary about knowing that everything is going to work out in the best possible way? That we're going to be able to live forever in a marvelous city where the air is filled with beautiful music and the streets are paved with gold. It kind of sounds like a good thing to me. Much of the book of Revelation consists of a vision that the Apostle John had about the future. And here's an important key in understanding the message of Revelation. It's really not about tomorrow, it's about today. The futuristic symbolism also reflects a present-day reality. I believe the point of Revelation is not merely to know what is going to happen in the future. The point of Revelation is that you'll know how to live today because of what's going to be coming in the future. For example, Revelation has a lot to teach us today about priorities, about praise, about perseverance, and how these things should be a part of our lives today. Revelation 21 is a glimpse of a distant future. It takes place after the final judgment. Look at verses 1 through 4 in Revelation 21. John writes this, "Then I saw a new heaven and a new earth, for the first heaven and the first earth had passed away, and the sea no longer existed. I also saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, prepared like a bride adorned for her husband. Then I heard a loud voice from the throne. Look, God's dwelling is with humanity, and he will live with them. They will be his people, and God himself will be with them and be their God. He will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Death no longer exists. Grief, crying, and pain will exist no longer, because the previous things have passed away. So no more death, no more sorrow, no more tears or pain. That doesn't really sound that scary. God gives us a glimpse of the future so that we're going to better understand how we live, or how we should live today. And this passage in Revelation shows us what's in store for the followers of Christ. This helps us to live today with hope and determination. So as we begin the new year, I believe this passage gives us three things on which we can build our hope. First of all, he can make everything new. Revelation 21, verse 5, the first part of verse 5 says, "Then the one seated on the throne said, 'Look, I am making everything new.'" That's the power of God. He can restore that which has been damaged, and those things that have been damaged beyond repair, he can replace with something new. Just like he'll someday create a new heaven and a new earth for his people, he can create a new situation for every one of us today. He can give you a new dream, a new hope, a new goal, a new life, a new heart. That's what David asked for. When he realized that his heart was damaged beyond repair, that he could never fix himself or save himself, he prayed in Psalm 51, "Create in me a new heart, a clean heart, O God." And this is what God promises his people. In Ezekiel 36:26, he said, "I will give you a new heart, and I will put a new spirit in you. I will take out your stony, stubborn heart and give you a tender, responsive heart." That's how God makes everything new. He fixes what's broken. And those things that are too broken to be fixed, he replaces with something brand new. Do you need something new in your life? Do you need a new heart? Do you need a new purpose? Or even a whole new self? We serve a God who makes everything new. And that begins with you and me. Paul said in 2 Corinthians 5:17, "Anyone who belongs to Christ has become a new person. The old life is gone, a new life has begun." Back in the 70s, there was a chain of furniture stores across the nation. In fact, it was one of the first stores that started the warehouse store kind of doing things. And they went through this major overhaul in their inventory, in their pricing structure, their payment plans, and on and on. And they launched a national advertising campaign to promote the changes. And it said this: "If you haven't been to Levitt's lately, you haven't been to Levitt's." Y'all remember Levitt's furniture stores? Some of you do. We had a big one in Wichita when I was growing up. You can actually find one of these commercials on YouTube if you're interested. I had to go look it up and see if there was one there. The thing is that they wanted you to know that if your impression of their store was based on what you had seen a couple of years ago, then you needed to come in and get reacquainted with them, because it wasn't the same old store. Everything was new. And that same kind of idea can be true about you for the coming year. If you haven't seen me lately, you haven't really seen me at all. Because God is doing something new in my life. He's turned things around. He's taken out what was stony and stubborn and has replaced it with a heart that's tender and obedient. It'd be great if we could say that about our church as well, wouldn't it? If you haven't been to Fairdale lately, you haven't been to church. Because God is doing something new here as well. He's creating a new life. He's building new relationships. He's opening new doors. He's given us a new future. If you haven't seen us lately, you really haven't seen us at all. Because God is here and He's making everything new. Here's the second thing that I want you to see. When God makes everything new, He does it in such a way that this is point number 2, He'll quench your deepest thirst. Listen to what He said in Revelation 21, the second part of verse 6. He says, I will give water as a gift to the thirsty from the spring of life. God promises us a life of deep and abiding satisfaction. It's a promise that God has made again and again and again throughout Scripture. It goes back as far as Isaiah. In Isaiah 55, verses 1 and 2, it says, is anyone thirsty? Come and drink. Even if you have no money, come and take your choice of wine or milk. It's all free. Why spend your money on food that does not give you strength? Why pay for food that does you no good? Listen to me, and you will eat what is good. You will enjoy the finest food. Isaiah is saying that life without God is like eating food that doesn't taste good, food that doesn't make you full. I found out during COVID, when I lost my taste and my smell, food just wasn't enjoyable. I mean, I ate because I knew I needed to keep my strength up, but there was no enjoyment at all when I ate because there was nothing. I mean, absolutely nothing there. It was just whatever I stuck in my mouth, and there was no taste at all. And that's such a weird feeling. And it just, now I snack at night. Then I didn't. Because it was like, what's the point? Why snack? And I'm not getting anything out of it. God's saying that life with God is like enjoying the finest food that you can imagine. And Jesus made the same kind of comparison when He spoke to the woman at the well in Samaria. He said, anyone who drinks this water will soon become thirsty again, but those who drink the water I give will never be thirsty again. It becomes a fresh, bubbling spring within them, giving them eternal life. And in another place, it says that when Jesus was eating at a festival, He stood and proclaimed in a loud voice. This is in John 7, verses 37 and 38. He says, and Jesus stood up and He said, anyone who is thirsty may come to me. Anyone who believes in me may come and drink. For the Scriptures declare, rivers of living water will flow from His heart. Do you know what it's like to be really thirsty? I mean, really thirsty. I remember the first time in my life when I was really thirsty. I had gone to a Boy Scout camp. You had to hike in and hike out. And I was in 3rd or 4th grade, something like that. My middle brother had been a Boy Scout, and so when I was old enough, I wanted to join. And we went to Boy Scout camp. and it was like a week. And this was the first time that I had ever been away from home for an extended period of time. Well, since I was new at all of this, and you pack all your stuff into this, into your backpack, I didn't know what I was doing. I packed my insect repellent in with my mess kit. So my insect repellent sprayed all over my mess kit and my utensils. So for the first couple of days while I was there, everything I ate was coated with insect repellent, which I didn't know. So I got sick. So the first couple of days, I was sick. I just didn't feel good at all. The camp nurse, thought I was just homesick. And I didn't put two and two together until after we got back home. But because I had been sick and didn't really feel like eating anything or drinking anything, just because of what the insect repellent was, it was doing as it worked through my body, I guess you could say. But when it came time to hike back out, I had no water, and I was lagging behind with a couple of the older adults, and tells you how bad I felt, because I wasn't even up with all the other kids. I was back with the old folks. And one of the guys, I was so parched, and one of the guys took out of his thing a bag of Starburst, and he said, I always save a bag of Starburst for when we're leaving. He said, because the tartness of those Starbursts will make your saliva, will get your saliva going. And so I'm walking back there with them, all three of us are eating Starburst, and it did. It helped my thirst there. But then when we finally got to where all the cars were at the parking lot, there was this big jug. I had a couple of these big jugs full of ice water. I tell you what, nothing tasted as good as that ice water when we got there. But if you've ever been really thirsty, I'm not just talking, I could use a drink. I mean, really thirsty. Then you know how good that fresh water can taste. It's incredible. And that's how the Bible describes the life that God promises to His people. And you know what? You have every right to expect it. You have every right to hope for it. Some people spend their days expecting life to be disappointing most of the time. And that it's just going to be mediocre at best. And they never allow themselves to get their hopes up. But that's not what God says. God says, get your hopes up. Expect good things from life. Yeah, you may have problems and trials and troubles and setbacks. There may be battles that you have to fight and obstacles that you have to overcome. But in the midst of it all, your thirst will be quenched. In the midst of the ups and downs of life, you're going to experience satisfaction beyond compare. It will be like a river of living water flowing from your heart. God is out to create something new in your life. Something that satisfies you through the deepest part of your soul. Now here's the third thing that I want you to see. God's promise means that He will make it all worthwhile. He will make it all worthwhile. That's why it pays to persevere. It just keeps getting better and better. Look at verse 7 here in Revelation 21. It says, "The victor will inherit these things, and I will be his God, and he will be my son." A different translation says, "All who are victorious will inherit all these blessings, and I will be their God, and they will be my children." The King James Version starts out, "He that overcometh shall inherit all things." Do you know how to be overcometh? You know how to overcometh something? You outlasteth it. You don't quitteth in the middle. You persevere until the end. In this life, you may lose some battles along the way, but the only way to win the war is to stay in the battle until the very end. In his book, The 17 Indisputable Laws of Teamwork, John Maxwell talks about the principle of the price tag. We fail to reach our potential when we fail to pay the price. He reminds his readers that most people who quit don't give up at the bottom of the mountain. They stop halfway up. That's the easiest time to quit, but it's also the worst time to quit. Halfway up the mountain or halfway through whatever difficult situation you're in, after the initial rush of adrenaline is worn off and the challenges start becoming more and more obvious, it's tempting to seize any opportunity to just bail. To give in to this temptation is to embrace mediocrity. Quitting halfway up the mountain again and again ensures that we spend more of our time starting over and less of our time doing great things. Because our greatest achievements come with a cost. Dwight D. Eisenhower said there are no victories at bargain prices. Legendary football coach Vince Lombardi said, "A man can be as great as he wants to be if you are willing to sacrifice the little things in life and pay the price for the things that are worthwhile. It can be done." And I think the message for today in this passage from Revelation 21 is that perseverance pays off. It's worth sticking around through the tough times, because the one that overcometh shall inherit all things. That means that you might have to pay a price. What kind of price could it be? A few hours less of sleep? Maybe a skipped meal or two? A few evenings without TV? More time in Scripture and in prayer? There's a price that often stands between you and all that God has for your life. But the price is always worth paying. We've got a year ahead of us. I believe that it has the potential to be the best year ever, because that's how life in God works out. It just keeps getting better and better and better. So as we begin this new year together, let's look to God in expectation to create new things among us. Let's look to Him in expectation, knowing that He will satisfy our deepest longings. And let's commit now to stay faithful to Him until the end, knowing that when we overcome, we will be blessed with all things. Let's take out our prayer sheets.